a lot of bands don't approach this as a business. So like
Yep.
when you're having this conversation about vision and goals, like I
Hmm.
think the mindset of looking at a business or your band as a business, do you have the ability to, pay taxes when you guys play gigs and you're actually getting money?
Yeah.
Are you as a band, do you have a band fund?
Right.
Do you have a PayPal account where all your band fund gets deposited? And then when you guys have shows, that is going into the band fund to fund things like vinyl records or producing fees or artist fees that
Marketing.
you're having marketing. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. There's a lot of artists that I've worked with that don't recognize that they'll put $1,000 into a music video and they won't budget anything for marketing to actually get it seen. They'll
Right.
budget $3,000 for an album and they'll budget nothing for promotion or PR. And it's just
Right.
like you have to look at the bigger picture of this. Like as a business, you are
Hmm.
either going to, trudge out content organically and try to get that seen by anybody and everybody, or you're gonna have to pay to play. Yeah. We had an artist that I worked with as a drummer with him and his project, and he was telling us kind of a horror story about how he was really happy that he was only a hired gun for this
Hmm.
project, even though he really thought he was going to be like a long-standing member. But the people who kind of own the project were pretty protective of that ownership rights. At the
Hmm.
time, he was like, I feel like I've done more and I should have ownership. And there was a sentiment there of kind of pessimism. But he realized that they signed a record deal and they signed a deal that was bad, really
Hmm.
bad. So he got to walk away and not have to deal with the debt that
Yeah.
record label had put on those two people who were the owners of a five-person band.
Yeah.
Because those two people were the owners of the band, other people were participants, right? They were
Hmm.
artists that were basically hired guns, right? They weren't necessarily people who, had any ownership rights to the band. You can have ownership rights to a song
Hmm.
without ownership rights to the band. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't want to discuss or don't want to like have the conversation from a business standpoint. But
Yeah.
like I kind of think about it like this, like if one of the two bands that I was in, right, got $1 million contract tomorrow, how would we split the money?
Right.
Would you split it based on effort? Would you split it based on who's putting all the work in? Right?
Hmm.
If you have a guy who comes in and does the show and he doesn't practice and he doesn't write, he doesn't contribute, he just, basically comes in, like, does that person get a part of that $1 million bonus? Or are they becoming someone who you're going to use part of that $1 million out of your cut to pay them as a hired gun,
Right.
right? If that's the situation, you kind of need to think about that ahead because you
Hmm.
don't want to get into a situation where you're like making progress and you get an offer for $1 million deal and you are now committed and bro's like, hey man, I can't go on tour because I got my job at Chili's.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we're gonna punch you into $1 million contract, but you can't even go on tour.